please maintain your privacy. Okay, questions are you'll be live in the background as well during the recording. But Tammy Bailey Foltz is our leader today. She's a business procurement consultant, an entrepreneur, and educator and speaker, and one of my favorite speakers, in fact. And anytime we're talking about RFP writing, we're including Tammy. She is the CEO and president of the National Association of Women-Owned Small Businesses and her own firm, Nomicon Solutions. The Association of Women-Owned Small Businesses is a national membership-based business organization that focuses on educating women-owned and other small businesses and helping them navigate in the procurement and grants fields. She has clients and members in various states, and she assists and consults on procurement-related activities at all levels of government, corporate entities, and educational institutes. And I'm going to let Tammy share with you some of her insights as she goes along in her presentation today. But welcome, Tammy, and to the class. And as I mentioned earlier, I'll stay in the background. If you have any questions, reach out to me on chat. And you can kind of explain the rules, how you engage everyone. But if you have a question and she has a call on you, please just raise your hand. We'll get to you, or put that question in your chat box. So welcome, everybody. And I'm going to turn this over to Tammy. How are you doing today, Tammy? Happy New Year to you, first of all.
Yes. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thank you so much, Mark. Excited about being here once again, particularly given all of what's going on at the start of this new year. So just glad to be healthy and safe and warm. So a happy new year to all of you. Again, Mark, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. We had a great season last year, 2021. I'm happy to say that some of the clients that I've serviced over the years and just even last year were able to be awarded contracts. So overall, no complaints, had a great season, and even so much so up to just a couple of weeks ago. So it's been quite busy. As you know, some of you who are into government contracting or getting into it, your reason for getting into it, because you have heard it is very lucrative. It can be if you're given the right, opportunities. Of course, bidding right, all of that really makes a difference. So today we're going to talk about absolutely the writing portion of it, getting into it, and hopefully give you some nuggets, some information, practical information that you can use starting even tonight. So that for those of you who may have seen some opportunities that you want to go after, or if not tonight, tomorrow. But certainly, it'll give you hopefully a template, an idea of what's needed. And just keep in mind that the information that will be provided, that it is, you're going to customize this to meet your needs and to meet, more importantly, the needs of the agency that's making the request. Every agency is not going to ask for all of the information. Some may ask for something totally different, but this is just to give you a framework of where you can start, and that if you have this template already lined up, because the key to this is about being proactive and not being reactive. The worst feeling that you can get is to see a RFP that comes along that, in your opinion, that it looks exactly like you. It speaks to exactly your experiences and all of what you have done, and then you're not prepared. Because you don't have enough time, you're seeing it late. So hopefully this template gets you in a better position so that you can respond timely to RFPs, and therefore in responding timely, you also can submit more so that you're also efficiently, you're efficient and effective in what you send. So with that being said, I feed off of you, as Mark alluded to, that I really like to have the input of the people who are participating. And so certainly I want for you all to, just share, open up information, ask questions, and then we want to go ahead and get started. So I want to allow for a little bit of time for people to come in. And I see that we have just a few participants. And as Mark stated, some are showing up late. And we're business people, things happen also. So we definitely understand that. But with that being said, we are going to go ahead and get started. And I'd like to start with, if you don't mind, some introductions of the people that are on the call right at the moment. For those of you who are in our meeting, anyone would like to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your business?
I'll start. I'm Dr. Angela Massey. I'm not putting my face on camera by choice.
No problem.
I work for a small training company. Part of my job is to write the statement of work part of a proposal. And actually, my boss got this email and called me up and said, I think you should go to this, even though it's short notice. So I'm here to learn as much as possible how to do the part of my job better.
I understand. Wonderful. Okay, so Angela, and Dr. Angela, I'm sorry, I understood you say that it's a training company that you're working for, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then what type of training? What is it that, can you say specifically what type of training?
We do all soft skills and some hard skills training. Our biggest client is the government. So we've won quite a few, but we would certainly like to win more.
Okay, that's understandable. All right, great. Well, given that you all have won quite a few already, I'm sure you all have it down to a fine science, but hopefully there may be a few things that you can see or have identified that perhaps that you all are doing and maybe it's not necessary to continue doing. So we will see. You will let me know, okay? But thank you. Thank you so much. All right, anyone else?
Sure. Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bridget Forsyth. A little bit about myself. I'm the owner of co-owner actually of T&B Forsyth LLC. We are a veteran-owned and woman-owned general contracting. What we do, well, a little bit about myself. I did 22 years with the federal government in budget and finance. And my last tour was with the CDC, and then I decided to retire in 2017. So my husband and I, who's retired military, we do a lot of storm cleanup. So we went through GCA, Government Contractors Association, and our first night there, we won a subcontract.
Wonderful.
And so we've been subbing, we've been receiving subs, and we have an AT&T contract where we do cell tower clearing. So we're from Panama City, Florida, but retired here in the Metro Atlanta area. And we went into Panama City, Florida was really impacted by Hurricane Michael. And pretty much our in-town was destroyed. So we went in 3 days after the hurricane, did volunteer work. We had a capability statement, all of the above, but we could not win a contract for nothing in the world. So just so happened to find a RFP the day before yesterday in Panama City, Florida with debris removal. So I'm like, okay, I'm in here.
All right, awesome, awesome, good. Well, welcome, Bridget, and thank you so much for the information and background. That's really good, very good, thank you. All right, awesome. And who's next?
Hey there, I'll go next. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, hi. So my name is Sharon Castillo, and I am also putting the information I'm about to tell you in the chat box. So it's there right now. But so I'm the owner of a Fruitful Training Group, LLC. So I'm the sole owner there, and we provide professional development solutions. So creative.
I'm sorry, Sharon. I'm sorry, Sharon. It's coming in. I can hear you, but I'm not. I believe that others may not be able to hear you as clearly.
No. I'm going to turn up and then let me know if it gets better or not.
Okay.
Is it any better?
Not quite.
Okay. I'm going to try to fidget with a couple of things on Zoom. Is that any better?
No, it's not. Maybe if you just talk a little bit louder, because it's just a brief introduction. So if you can.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great. That's perfect. Yes, that's perfect.
So I put my information in the chat box, but so I am in the Texas area, Dallas, Fort Worth area specifically, and I am the sole owner of Fruitful Training Group. So we do professional development, so content creation and delivery, training, facilitation. So the soft skills, leadership, communication, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those, to name a few. So.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you.
Done any work with the government, so I am new to this, so to speak. So I'm trying to, I like a quote by Woodrow Wilson: I not only use all the brains I have, but all that I can borrow. And so I'm here to borrow.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. Anyone else like to introduce themselves and their business? You know, it's always a great opportunity when you come before, you know, fresh faces, and we're all business owners, and this is great opportunity. You never know that you all can be, someone mentioned, I think Bridget, be a subcontractor. You never know. So do we have anyone else? Ryan?
Sure. Yeah, I'll introduce myself real quick. I actually think could be a interesting coincidence, or I'm correct in saying that my colleague Mindy Barrow, actually from the same company you may have just joined, we both do the same role. We're both in the insurance, the commercial insurance world. So our firm likes to target municipality, property, casualty, workers' comp insurance, and do all of those types of insurances and offer risk management programs to help them stay safer. And with that, in order to get those contracts, we often have to complete RFPs. And so I'm probably speaking for her a little bit too, but I just want to be much better at writing those RFPs. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ryan. I don't know, Mindy, would you like to add anything else to that, to Ryan's introduction? Okay, she may be still on mute. Right, no problem. Okay, anyone else? Oh.
Hey guys, sorry, I am here. I jumped into the meeting a little bit late because I registered at the last minute.
No, you're fine. You're right on time.
Yeah, no, great. Anyway, nice to see you. No, exactly what Ryan said. Just looking forward to just some helpful information, because we do put these proposals in fairly often, and we know that it can sometimes just be a differentiating factor with what is and is important and what isn't, and what should and should not be included. So looking forward to what you have to say today. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. All right, anyone else? No one else? Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, if anyone else wants to, if anyone else joins, I think Tangia, if I'm saying your name correctly, we were just doing introductions. Would you like to introduce your business? No?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, my
Okay.
name is Tangia Taylor. I'm with TaylorMade Global Logistics, and I am actually the owner of the company, and plus I do the procurement sourcing for my company. And I'm here to learn about how I can about the RF, excuse me, and to be able to win government bids. I'm new to the government sourcing, so I'm just I'm going through a learning process of how I can win government bids. So I'm glad to be on.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining. And Tangia, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, where are you located?
I'm actually located in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful, great, great. I love that. Thank you. And let's see, Ryan and Mindy, where are you guys located?
I'm in Burlington, Vermont.
In Vermont. Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, keep that cold weather there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ryan, he's over in Plattsburgh, New York, and about an hour from here, but we're both in cold.
Cold. Yeah. Yeah. Keep that all there. Let's push that back. Okay.
I like to tell people where I'm at in Northern New York is really Montreal's U.S. suburb.
You got that right. Yes, you're absolutely right about that. Well, we want all of that. Keep your snow, your sleet, your all of that. Keep all of that right there. Okay. I mean, we're in Georgia, and we get our share of everything. And sometimes it happens all in the course of one day or 1 week. And we're good with that because we know that it's not here to stay. It's only for a period of time, and it keeps it moving. So you all keep the cold weather there. All right. And then I know for Sharon is in Dallas, Texas. Bridget, I can't remember. Oh, Bridget is in Atlanta. And then for Dr. Angela Massey, Dr. Angela, where are you located?
I'm in Delaware. Our company
Oh,
is
wow.
physically located, if we have a physical location. Well, our mailing address is Florida. We are completely remote and we've always been.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Great. Thank you. And I just asked those questions because it's really, when I'm addressing a broad audience like this, and it's just us who are on here. And so while it's not an overextensive group, but it helps to know what areas where people are located so that I can kind of speak to some of the insights on things that I know within your own state. And one of the things that while we are focused, of course, on primarily federal contracts, but when I speak to this, I'm kind of talking about all contracts, especially the local, the county, your state, your school systems, because people tend to overlook those. They forget about tapping into the school systems for opportunities, your colleges, your universities, all of that. So it's not just about the federal government opportunities, although those are really great. But just keep in mind that you have so many more opportunities beyond just the federal government. Okay, so always keep your mind open to that. When you're not seeing perhaps what it is that you're really looking for, just make sure that you are looking at some of the other entities and agencies as well. Okay, so with that being said, I want to go ahead and get started on where I'd like to start, because we have some people who are totally new and others who are not new, but have been working, you're working in a space of where you're the employee and but your responsibility is procurement, right? So because we have a mixed audience here, I'm going to kind of just start from the beginning, broad and general, and then we'll get into some of the meat and potatoes of it. So one of the areas where I typically like to start, and this is really for anyone, and those of you who are with companies where you have already, you're kind of past this point, but it just serves as a great reminder, particularly because we're at the beginning of the new year. So this is a great time to capture it, right? So I'm going to make sure I have my, let me make sure I have my stuff together here. All right. Yes, I do. Okay. So I'm going to share here my screen with you guys, and you should be able to see it in just a second. Okay, all of you should be able to see the screen here. I have to always you remember I'm starting class. I have to take down all my other stuff that I've been working on in the course of the day, because I have an RFP that I am working on for a client right this moment. That's due tomorrow. And so I'm just so happy. And I know you all have all been in that space where you're just so happy to get to the end of it. You're like, I can't wait for this to be over. And so that's where I am, especially because this particular one has been pushed back so many times. And it's due to COVID, it's due to a number of things, but just glad that I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, that we are able to get this submitted for tomorrow. So starting with one of the areas that I like to start with is particularly for my new people, but for those who are seasoned as well. And because it is the beginning of the year, for those of you who are seasoned and those who are new, start with what I call a performance worksheet. A performance history is really more of the correct terminology I'm looking for, right? And so that when you're doing your performance history worksheet, you want to capture your performance history. And this is for the new people as well as those who are seasoned or with their companies. So in capturing that, what we're looking for is information to kind of outline, and this is an ongoing worksheet. This is not a one-time and throw it away or set it aside and say, oh, I forgot where it is. No, this is ongoing. This is something that really can help your business, whether you're sitting on the side as employee or you're the CEO, but it helps you to get a good snapshot of your business and where you have been providing most of your services and services. So I like to always start with with the client, but there's also some other areas that you want to put on here as well. So one, of course, what we're documenting is actually your work history, your work performance, or the performance history of your company. So when we say client, a lot of times you will also see that some entities will ask for the contract number, right? So you want to put the client. So if your client was, and I believe it was Bridget who stated that they had AT&T, I believe she said was their client. So that's where they would put AT&T in there, and they would put the contract number if they actually have it. You also want to capture what's the location of this. I can't remember, but I'm going to just put that it was Panama City. That may not be correct, but I'm just using this as an example. So you would put you can just put city and state. Sometimes, depending upon the RFP, it will ask for specifics in terms of the full address. But for purposes of what we're capturing on this worksheet, if you can just put that, that really is good to put that information there. You want to put also your performance dates, and it helps if I can spell. But you want to capture what are the performance dates, right? So when did you start? When did you end? And if that was, say, April 2020, and if it's still, you're still performing, then you would put current. But if it ended, December 31st, 2021, then that's what you would put, whatever the performance dates are, right? And then you would give the description. What is it exactly? What type of work that you have done or that you are doing, whatever that may be, whether it's debris removal or if it's training and development. What else do we have here? Insurance. Go into detail, of course, don't just put insurance, don't put just debris removal. Give a little bit more information there as you see fit. The other is what I call, and this is just my way of, because I just haven't thought of another way, maybe you all know of a better word. I just always like to quantify, and sometimes it fits good in the description, but I put this in as a reminder, especially when I'm working with new clients or anyone, as a reminder, something to quantify what you've provided in terms of services. So if you say it's debris removal, and I guess actually Bridget would probably correct me. So I don't know when you do debris removal, if that's measured in pounds or tons. I don't know, what's the weighted measure, how you determine how much of a load, or maybe it's loads, I don't know. But whatever the verbiage is that goes for you to best describe it. So your quantifier is putting a number that you have this here. So if you say an insurance that you all have provided, employees, if you serviced AT&T and you have provided services, insurance for 3,000 employees, then you would show 3,000 employees. Or if you're talking about debris removal, whatever that weighted measure is, you would indicate it there. If you're talking about training and development, how many students, how many people register for the course, and not only that, but the number of courses that you may have done, because you could very well be there for a week, or maybe it's for a full day, it's 8 hours. Whatever it is, that's the numbers that we're talking about when you talk about quantifying, right? So those are just a few of the areas. Now, you can certainly put in some other details here in the boxes. This is your sheet. It's not anyone else's. You don't have to share it with anyone. This is for you. But what it does is that you start putting information in here, then you start realizing, the type of client that you have been servicing. You also start seeing, oh, all of my opportunities are in Florida, or all of my opportunities are in Louisiana, or all of my opportunities are in a certain region of the country. You're in Vermont, but all of your clients happen to be in California, on the West Coast. So it helps to really get an idea for where you are in terms of your performance history and exactly what services that you have been providing. Are you just all in the same bucket here in terms of servicing, whatever that is. Now, how this comes into fold, this is just good to have, because it really helps you to see your clients. It's a good snapshot. Again, we're at the beginning of a new year. So for 2021, and you do this for all of the years. So it's not just You know, right now you can document your 2021. We just left 2021, so it's kind of easy sometimes, but sometimes people forget. And then so you want to put your 2020 and you want to put your 2019. Now, I will tell you that when it comes to RFPs, most RFPs only want to see history for about what's good for the last 3 years. Sometimes they may say last 5 years, but no, I hardly ever see anything that goes beyond that. So typically they want something that's really current. So they're looking for within the last 3 years. But if you have something within the last 5, sometimes, but again, you're going to take your information based upon what it is that the agency is wanting. But for purposes of this worksheet, document away, I would not go beyond 1, 2, 3. I probably would cut it off, probably right about between 2018, 2019, again, for RFP purposes. And because the rest of it, it becomes cumbersome for you to keep documenting the rest of it and remembering all of that. It's hard enough to remember sometimes what you did yesterday, let alone last year, the year before, right? But make sure that you document your information. Again, you can add some other variables here. Another thing that could be added is the value of the project itself, project value. And so that helps you also to see, hey, are we doing better? Did I do better in 2021 than I did in 2020? Of course, that was 2020. We know what kind of year that was. But, depending upon your business, you may have done extremely well in 2020. I know of many business owners who have and continue to do so. They didn't miss a beat. In fact, people, changed course and went in a different direction, and it brought on more business for them. So it helps you to see what is working for you in terms of your business. So it's a good snapshot. Any questions on just this portion before we move on? Any questions, anyone?
I do have a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I don't know if it's for the good of the group, and if not, then we can address it offline. But if you are, I'm thinking about subcontracting. So if I work for someone that gets something, so I don't know contract numbers or any of that. And if all of my work has come through them, I pretty much end up just kind of listing clients. Is that something that is seen as acceptable, or no, hun, you need more experience individually on your own? Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
Because
I
I'll
do.
go through and find all of that. But my company, so some transparency, was just established last year officially. Now I've been doing some subcontracting, so to speak, quote unquote, last year, but I also did it a few years before that. It just wasn't under a company name, if that makes sense. And so it kind of just turns into a list of clients. Is that something that would be considered acceptable?
Right. And I'm sorry, who's speaking?
My apologies, should have said that. This is Sharon.
Sharon. Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, Sharon, great question. I love the question. Yes, you can do this exercise is for anyone, regardless of whether you are a subcontractor or a prime. But it's just to gauge, because even as a subcontractor, you still want to gauge your performance history. What have you done? What are the areas that you have been servicing? What type of clients have you been servicing? So it serves well to have this sheet in there for you. You would, in your case, and this is for anyone as a subcontractor, because the beauty of a subcontractor is that it's a little bit less risk. The prime takes on all the risk because their name is on the contract. They have the responsibility, the fiscal, the insurance responsibility, all of that. As the subcontractor, the beauty of being a subcontractor, in addition to, of course, getting the work and getting paid for it, but you too get to list that as your performance history. So Sharon, and for others, you would list this, whoever is that client, you could put the name of your actual client, the person, the prime who won the contract, and then I would put slash, or you can put up is a subcontractor, right? So however you need to denote that is fine. Because again, this is your worksheet. This isn't anyone else's. So you could very well go in here, and I'm sorry, guys, by the way, I'm doing this via Google Doc. So for those of you who are probably like, what is she doing? Is this Excel? What is that? This is Google Docs. So it's one where it's easily editable. You can share it, several people can work on it at the same time, all of that, okay? But again, for the subcontractor, so you may want to put that, the client was whatever, I'm going to say just C Brown, that's the name of the company. And then / AT&T is actually the opportunity, the client that you all both were servicing. And then again, you still fill in this information, the performance dates, you still can fill in all of that. Description, absolutely, quantity, all of that, you still get to fill in. And then you just know that it is a subcontract opportunity. You can color code it. Again, this is yours to play with. You don't want to get into it where it bogs you down so much. But what I like about doing this is that, particularly for people who are new, or even for those who have been in business for a while, but they are not getting the type of contracts that they want, or just not sure where to look to start, or if you're the new guy on the block and you have the responsibility for finding RFPs. If you take a snapshot of this, you will see where your performance history is, and you will now have a good idea of where to start. It doesn't mean that you have to stay in that lane, but it certainly is a good indicator. Okay. So hopefully, Sharon, that answers your question in regards to that.
Yes, thank you. I guess there's a kind of a comma
Okay.
or parenthetical to that is, so I know that this is personal for me, and I'll go ahead and document. And so my question is also, does that make a difference positively or negatively when it actually comes time to bid? Do you know what I mean? If most of my stuff is sub, does that
right?
reflect
So
my
it's
capability?
about the writing. Right. It's about the writing. It's about the opportunity, and it's about the writing. Will determine that. So it's how you write it, how you phrase it, and it's about the actual opportunity that you are going after. Because there are some opportunities where it's very clear, and they will also, the RFP itself will state, the agency will state that they're only wanting a prime, or that they want 100% of the work to be done by the prime and its employees. And there are others that will speak to, yes, subcontractors are allowed, so in which of the R kind of serves as the driver. And you'll get a good feel for that as you become more comfortable in reading RFPs. Okay. All right, good. So we are going to move into the next phase. And this is something that, of course, everyone here is, we're still with everyone, the same group. Yes. So we are getting ready for the actual template that I know that you guys want to get to. And so we're going to do that right now. Let me just clear that and make
As you go there, Tammy, I'll see that Tangia has a question. She had her hand
Okay.
up.
Yes, I'm sorry, Tangia.
The last young lady, she pretty much put it out there for me, because the company that I was working for here, we did a lot of government contracting where I had to source a lot of those products for those entities. And I was wondering, when it came to the RFPs, what did I look when they asked for experience and things like that? I was wondering, could I add that on as experience, because I wasn't an employee, I was a contract worker for this particular contractor for this particular company here in Shreveport, where where I sourced all the time. So I didn't know if I should use that as experience, but she that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. One of the things you want to remember is that experience is experience. It's like going to school, going to college, or getting a license from somewhere, certification. It's yours. No one can take that away from you. You actually did the work. Now, again, the RFP is the driver, and then we're going to get to the part to talk about the references and all. And so knowing how to navigate that part of it. But at the end of the day, if you did the work, you get to claim it. It's yours. You actually did it. No one else did the work. So now it's about how do you write that and how do you make it work for you? Okay. All right, so we are going to, let's see, I thought I shared, but I guess I didn't. Let me go back here. Share the response template, okay? So you all should all be able to see that now, the response, okay? And for this is the short version of it, right? So Cliff Notes, that's the word I'm looking for. So I'm telling my age here. For those of you who know about Cliff Notes, I don't even know if they still have Cliff Notes now. I guess they do. But Cliff Notes, so for those of you who may need to leave, or for those of you who are a little antsy or your stomach is growling, or it's the end of the workday, I certainly get it. So here's just the quick Cliff Notes version, a synopsis of what we're going to be talking about for about the next 30 minutes, right? We have the cover sheet. These are, again, this is a response, your RFP response template. So we're going to talk just briefly about cover sheet, transmittal letter / cover sheet. Well, I'm sorry, that was not cover letter, is what that say, not cover sheet in. Table of contents, your company history / background, your technical approach or methodology, your relevant experience, qualifications, performance history, just what we talked about, but going into a little bit more there. Key personnel resumes, their qualifications, including yours, organization chart, any forms and documents, and then of course about the price sheet and the listing and all, right? So this is typically, again, this is your RFP response template. You can create this however you want. It is yours. It is not something that will be used on every RFP that you submit. It may only be used on a couple. It may be used on every one. It varies. It really will be determined by the type of RFP that you're putting in place as to whether or not the ones that you're on, as to whether or not all things will apply. Sometimes, again, this is RFP. So this course that we're doing, this one is about RFP. If you're responding to, say, RFQ, requests for quotes, it's probably not going to call for all of this. The quote is a quote. And so you may only have a few forms to complete. They may ask for references, things like that, experience, and then it asks for the price, and that's it. That's a quote. RFP proposal is something totally different. RFI, request for information, may only ask for your capability statement and something else. So again, we're talking about the RFP, but we're talking about from the general perspective. Okay. So with that being said, the first part of it is, and I'll come to this bottom portion, the foot of it in a minute. But the first sheet is your cover sheet. Again, this is the template. This is a good idea to start with this. Not every, most RFPs, people don't even think about, oh, I should have put a cover sheet. They just go right into, especially on federal contracts, it kind of takes you in a different direction on the federal ones, because oftentimes, they give you that, what is it, SF 1449 work sheet to fill out, I believe is the number. I should know it as many times as I've had to fill it out. But that's usually their first, and they assign it, they tell blocks that they want to fill in, that type of thing. So filling in that particular sheet for the federal government, but I still like to go with a cover sheet, and then I start with their forms, right? So this cover sheet, and people will pay people to design and come up with this beautiful cover and beautiful graphics and all of that. That's up to you guys. It's optional. It's nothing says there's nothing that you will ever see in an RFP. I have yet to see one, and I've been doing this for about 12 years now. I have yet to see on any RFP that has says anything about they want the, your proposal to be color and all this graphic stuff and all of that. That is not the case. Plain black and white works best for them. But, again, if you want to put something in there, this is where you get an opportunity to do that. So you can put in your company's logo. It's good to start it, of course, your company logo. Real important is about placing the contract number or solicitation number. That's real important to put that on the cover sheet for sure. I always like to put that, this is an RFP response, and I usually even put this a little bit larger sometimes, but just to make sure that everyone knows this is my actual response to, this solicitation number. If it's a federal contract, the DUNS number, in most cases, the DUNS number it is asked that you put that information on there. Sometimes people will even use that DUNS number as their foot, especially if it's a federal contract, as a way to identify. By the way, I see that I believe the DUNS numbers are getting ready to go away. And so the unique ID is being assigned in place of the DUNS number. So if you're seeing any information to any of that, it is true. And numbers auto assign, it's nothing that you have to do. So that's another change coming there. And then so back to this, and then the solicitation title, whatever the contract title, usually it's a descriptive word, right? It may say janitorial services, it may say debris removal, employee retention, whatever it may say, that's the title. And then you would insert, or could, you don't have to, but I like to just insert the company, the agency's logo here, whatever agency it is that we're submitting the bid on. So I put in their logo. And then here I come and put my contact information. So, you may want to put, your contact, you don't have to. It's good to have it, I think, on the front here. So that way people know immediately if they need to reach out to you for whatever reason. Maybe your document didn't come in as clear as, for some reason, because a lot of times you're going to be sending this via email. As we know, it's not always, technology, things happen. And so maybe something came in, maybe all of it didn't come in, only the first page or whatever. So this way they know exactly how to reach you. Of course, if you're emailing, they have your email address, but if they need to call you, then it helps to put this information on here, right? And so you can do that. So this is my information, of course, but you can put your own information in it. It's not required. However, again, you follow the RFP. I have had some instances of where RFPs have stated, especially at the local level, that this is what they'd like to have on the front cover sheet, okay? And then to put the footer here, the footer is with a little bit different information. Up here, I may actually, where I have phone number, maybe I would put my cell number and I would indicate maybe that's a cell. But then down here in the footer, I may put the actual, my company's number, right? Just so that I'm not duplicating the same thing that I have here. If this is a part of your process, it doesn't have to be. Again, you're following the RFP. I'm just trying to give you all of what I have seen over the years when I'm giving this information to you. But again, the driver for this process is the RFP document, which will state how many pages it will allow, what is needed, and in what format, okay? All right, so that's on the cover sheet. Any questions on that? That's just real quick. And so something real simple, it's a one-pager. It should not take a lot of time. Again, if you wanna get creative here and add a splash of color, go for it. If you wanna, put, something on the side or whatever, but it's not to spend a lot of time or money on, because what's really, really important at the end of the day for RFPs, the quick and short to it is that it's, number one, it's about the pricing. Number two, it's about your experience, right? Number three is making sure that all this is verifiable. So number one is about the pricing. Now you will have some RFPs that will state pricing is not the key, deal breaker there, that lowest price may necessarily get it. But in most cases, certainly you do want to be in that number of where your RFP is pulled, your response is pulled, because your amount that you have bidded is a good amount. And so that is usually the driver, number one driver. And then it comes down to your experience to show that it is relatable, that it relates directly to what the RFP has requested. All right. So second, we will go to the next page, and this is what is known as a transmittal letter or a cover letter. Now, some RFPs I have seen have asked for transmittal letters. I've seen this at the county level. I can't remember. I don't know if I've seen too many for the federal, usually not for the federal, but I had at the county level, state level, that they've asked for a transmittal letter. You know, and think of it as a cover letter. That's really what it is. So if you see it, don't go like, oh my God, what is that? I don't know. But it's equivalent to a cover letter. And so it takes us back to, you know, elementary school, middle school, where, you know, you would say you had to write a letter and know how to write a letter properly. So this is where it tests your skills, and that you go back and, you know, put the agency name, the department, the address and all. It's, you know, the salutation and all the greetings, all the components of a letter, right? And it's a business letter. So here you would put, it is good for you to put what is the RFP number or solicitation number, and then to put the person's name, whose attention it's to, and their title. So, you know, definitely you want to make sure that you place the person's title. And then given that salutation of greetings, or I wouldn't put good morning or anything like that, because you never know what time they're going to receive it or actually read it. So, you know, greetings or hi is fine, or hello, Mr. Brown, or however you want to start, or just Mr. Brown, and start your sentence and writing of what it is that you want to state. And then here you're going to, this purpose of this cover letter is to maybe share something. Think of it just, you know, thinking about your response, think of it almost equivalent to if you were applying to a job. So normally you would have a resume that you're submitting to a company. This is your resume for your business that you're submitting to an agency, a government entity, or you know, if it's a corporate entity, whatever it may be. So think of it that way. So if you would submit a cover letter with your resume in looking for a job, this is the same thing. It's just that it's for your business. And so in this cover letter, you would actually state something that you have not stated, you know, that you're not going to state in the other part of the document here. And then you would sign it, you know, just sincerely. And when I say sign it, I don't mean that you have to print it and then go back and do all of that. Just do simple, you know, put a signature in there, get some, you know, good font. You know, this is, you know, these are things that are acceptable. Everybody's in the electronic world these days. So putting something in there like that is fine. Maybe putting your title is sufficient. Okay. So that's the cover letter. That's your transmittal letter. If there's an indicator on your RP that states it is wanting a transmittal letter, it will often state what it wants in the transmittal letter. And normally it will also indicate, if it says the words transmittal, it will tell you that it's only looking for a paragraph of what they are wanting you to state up front in the transmittal letter. So that part sometimes is really clear if it says those words. Okay. Next, we're talking just really briefly about table of contents, because table of contents is table of contents. We're all familiar with what table of contents is. You're going to come in and put what the title is and your page numbers. You can format this however you want to. It's just at the end of the day, you're not going to know necessarily all the pages. You're only going to know the first page. You won't know exact page numbers until you get completed with your document. So usually you're going to leave all of this blank, and then you start filling in over to the left side. Or, you know, some people will put in, they may put in statement of work, and then they just put and then they put page 2, something like that. You can have it that way. You can put it in the box. You can format it how, again, this is your template, and this is only you will be looking at this, because you're going to be taking pieces from it to actually put into your RFP response. Okay. All right. So next we get into what is known as the company history. All right. So now for company history, this is going to be a little bit more. It is going to be your one pager. And so with the company history, you're going to be providing information on your company, the background of you want your first line of the information you put in your company history is the most, to me, is the most important. Now, no one has said this, but I just think it is, it drives everything, because as you get farther in, the person who's reading this, they're going to read, especially if your bid amount is good, they're going to come back and read your company history. But the deal breaker, I think, is, whether you're in or not, is how good this first part reads. So if you started off strong and started capitalizing on the things that are exactly what the RFP is asked for, then I think this would work well in your favor. So if you start with stating that company ABC is what follows from after is to me, is the most important line of this whole thing. Because from this point is where you want to actually nail it for what this particular agency is asking for. All of you are small businesses, so that's a given. And to say that, that's fine when you have nothing else to say. But if you are a woman-owned company, this is where you want to say it. If you are a certified woman-owned company, this is where you want to say it. If you are a company, there you want to see it. Any of those, set aside or certifications that distinguish and differentiate you from anyone else in the marketplace, this is where you want to say it. So you want to make sure that you put that up front here. See, I'm getting a little unstable here. Hopefully you still hear me. Can everyone still hear me okay?
Yes, it's breaking up just a little.
Okay,
Yes.
is this a little better?
Yes, now it was, but it is breaking up a little bit.
Okay, let's see. If you bear with me for just a moment, let me change this for just a second. Let me change over and see if this helps a little bit. Sorry, guys, bear with me one moment. Let's see if I can get us over to my hotspot. Uh-oh, it's not connecting.
For the most part, you're good. It was just a little bit of that little underwater sound for like 6 seconds, and then it went away. So
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for that. Okay, so again, the company history, this portion of it, this is where you really want to, this is where, to me, you nail it. After they go to, I believe, from just working with some procurement officers, contracting officers and all, they typically, so say if 5 companies submit on an RFP, provide their response, they stack them up initially. As soon as they get them, they stack it up based on the lowest amount that's bidded, right? And so if your company is in, the number 1 or 2 slot, then it goes from there. So whoever is the highest bid, they're going to be at the end, and then companies that have bid at the lowest. So that's stacked from there. And then the very next thing is to start looking at the experience as it relates to what the agency is looking for. But the other part of it is just when you get to this point is then once you're the company that they're looking at, they come back to read to see if you're meeting what they're looking for. Are you meeting that agency's goals? Maybe they had not stated that they wanted a woman-owned company, but certainly that helps. Or they didn't state that they wanted a veteran-owned company, but it certainly helps. So it's in your best interest to bring that to their attention, okay? So whether or not the agency is looking for a veteran or a woman-owned company or disabled company, whatever it may be, it's in your best interest to state that. If you are a certified company, definitely you want to state that, okay? Now, the other identifier that I always like to place in there is about location. So if you are in Vermont and you're applying for an RFP that is in Vermont, of course you want to say that, right? That seems pretty obvious. If you're in Texas and the RFP that you're applying to is in Florida, then you want to say something like, you know, that you're servicing clients throughout the United States. You know, it's broad, right? Because you know, you're in Texas, it's in Florida, you know, but you want to make it clear that you can service it, because of course they see your address. If nothing else, or they may see you, even your area code, and say, oh, but they're not even local. So you want to make it clear that, yeah, I can serve anywhere, you know, it's not just this. So these are some of the things that I think is helpful. It's the little details, it's the little things that you bring to their attention that can be very helpful for you. Okay. Any questions from anyone on just this portion or just what we covered so far? Okay. All right, so then we will go right on to the next part, which is about the technical approach and methodology. And again, on this, let me go back for a second. On company history, this is something that is really going to be just a 1 page. It can be 2, maybe 3 paragraphs at the most, but usually just a couple of paragraphs is sufficient. Because you don't want to be, you know, repetitive over and over and over again, but you want to bring attention, highlight some things. If you want to speak to, you know, how long, if it works for you to say that you've been in business for a long time. If you haven't been in business for a long time, you don't want to mention it. So those are things that you want to put in your company history. When you come to the technical approach, the methodology, this is where you will, you know, put out all the bells and whistles. This is where you pour your heart and soul into it. And this is multiple pages. The one that I'm working on right now, they gave a limit of 10 pages is what they stated would be the technical approach and methodology, 10 pages. So when you see that, it's telling you, that's an indicator when they start telling you about, you know, methodology, technical approach, you have a maximum up to 10 pages. That's telling you, we expect you to write, you know, we expect more pages. We don't want this to be a 1 pager. So you need to be very detailed. Sometimes people put timelines in here. They put graphs, they put a combination of text. Now it should not be all of one, you know, it shouldn't be all just text, unless you put it in a certain format. If you use bullet points, you use graphs, you use diagrams, you use, you know, whatever it may be, some other things to break it up. Because again, at the end of the day, these are not machines that read RFPs, it's people. Everyone's eyes get tired like anyone else's. And so the more interesting that you can make it, the better. So certainly, but just keep in mind that this is where you're going to spell out. Now, every RFP may not call for technical approach or methodology. Some may call for it while others may not. But just, I tell you to be proactive, at least to have an idea of the general, you know, approach that you would take to debris removal, the general approach that you would take to your training, what's your training methodology? There are certain standards that you're going to do. You know, do you always have a train the trainer course? Do you, how do you go up and set up for, you know, starting the training process? You know, there are certain things that you want to say, that's part of your methodology for your company. So therefore you would outline it here in this portion. Okay. Any questions on the technical approach methodology? No? Okay. All right.
My apologies. This is Bridget. I was trying to unmute. I do have a question. So is in this for the the technical approach and methodology, is this where I will put like my response time also for like with Hurricane Ida, we were on like a 48-hour, we were able to like go within 48 hours to Louisiana. So
absolutely.
Is this
yes.
also?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, so you will state things like that, you know, your expected turnaround time, you know, as part of your approach, because that is your approach, that's your methodology. Your expected turnaround time is that we will address all emergency issues within 24 hours. Call back, you know, will be responded to by a project manager. We will send in a supervisor, whatever it is. Yes, that's part of your methodology, and all of that will be spelled out. Yes.
Okay. Absolutely. Now is in this portion, is this where we will also put like like, okay, like if we're doing debris removal, that we actually will just like a lot of, like in Panama City, we have no landfills.
Mhm.
So is this where we would add that also, that we will find the landfill, or how does that, is this where this would
Yeah.
go also?
Yeah, absolutely. Here is where you want to give as much details as possible as it relates to the RFP. And so let me make sure I'm clear about that. You know, you want to, for all of you, you want to put in information throughout this response as it relates to this RFP. So again, going back to what the analysis I made about, think of this as the resume. If you were applying to a job and the job is in the healthcare field, and so you're applying to it and you're a lab technician, then you want to reference everything as it relates to the healthcare field, but you're not going to talk about your job that you had where you were a school librarian. So it's the same thing with an RFP. You want to make sure that this is apples to apples relatable, and not apples to oranges. So from your methodology to everything inclusive of, you know, the cover letter, everything needs to relate to this specific RFP that you're responding to. Okay. Yes, Sharon.
Okay, I want to clarify something that the previous person, I think Bridget, or just asked. I apologize if I said the wrong name. So on the technical approach methodology, in my mind, this is what I will do. This is how I will perform. Her
Yes.
question, I want to clarify a piece. She mentioned something specific that she had already done. So in the methodology, are we sharing specific examples of past work, or are we only talking about this is what I would do, this is how we will handle it?
Right, you're basically talking about what you would do, because you have certain standards, right? Everyone has certain standards about how you approach the work that you do. And you can give examples. There's nothing wrong with giving examples of specifics. That certainly helps. The main thing is it needs to relate to this RFP. So if Bridget or yourself, if you're going to put in your standard, state the standard. This is our operating principles. This is our operating guidelines. This is how we conduct business. That's what this methodology is about. So pretty much you have a standard, everyone does in their business. This is how we operate. We open our doors at 8 a.m. We work to 5 p.m. During the course of the day, we have a supervisor on the floor. We have a project manager. We line it up. You know, if there's an urgent matter, who addresses that? All those things are covered in part of the methodology. Also included in the methodology, you will have sometimes quality assurance. Sometimes if that's not a separate thing, that's a worksheet or that's asked for, sometimes that is expected also to be a part of it. So making sure that that's a part of it, the quality portion of it. But certainly examples help. So to answer your question directly, yes, Sharon, that as Bridget stated, she was given some specifics. Yes, that can be a part of this technical approach and methodology. You state your standard, and then you come along with that standard, and you can say an example being that as we service a previous client, and you can state the client, as we service the, especially if it helps to, you know, if it helps to get you in there. So if you were doing work for Panama City Beach, and then this client is, you know, the state or something, yeah, it helps to put that in there. But again, use the methodology to go along with what is your standard. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it does. I always like to paraphrase. So here's my standard. This is how we do it, in the words of Montel Jordan. And then let me cite maybe some support. So almost like an outline, main idea, and then maybe there are a couple of things that I list to support, but I don't have to go into all the details of that support, but just say, this is what I do, for example, boom, for example, boom, and then move on.
Yeah, and you don't have to keep listing every example though.
Okay.
because then that's gonna, especially because I would imagine every example is not gonna relate to the RFP. It needs to relate. It needs to make sense. It needs to be apples to apples. It doesn't need to be apples to oranges, the example that you're providing. So I would imagine that you're not going to have an example for everything that's going to relate to this RFP that you're responding to. I could be wrong. Maybe you've done a lot, and so you have a lot of performance history and work that is relatable back to the very RFP that you're responding to. If that's the case, but one example will suffice for each standard. So it doesn't need to be 2, 3, 4 examples for every standard. It's just state the standard. This is our practice. This is what we do in example B. And you don't want to overdo it, because then they'll get it. They'll be like, okay, yeah, we got it. Enough with the examples. Let's move on.
Okay,
So
got
I mean,
it.
remember,
Thank
at
you.
the end of the day, these are people, these are humans, so it would be the equivalent of you being a reviewer for something and you're reading it and then your eyes start rolling back in your head. You're like, oh, come on, give us a break. We've already seen that. Okay. So it's just think about, these are humans like yourself. These are people who are reviewing, but also they have the responsibility for selecting. They have to determine who's going to, who's in terms of the risk. These are people who are the least amount of risk. Why? Because they have the most experience. They've done this very work that we're asking for them to do. They've done it before. So therefore, this particular company, this business is one that we want to make our offer to, award this contract to. So that's, just pretty plain and simple there. Okay. All right, so technical approach, multiple pages. Again, the RFP would normally tell you maximum number of pages and you need to abide by that. You don't have to meet it. You just need to make sure you don't go above that number. Next is talking about past performance and references. Typically, we're only looking for, as I stated before, between 3 to 5 years. Past performance, 3 to 5 years. Typically, 3 is a magic number. Usually they like to see within the last 3 years, but there are some instances where they will ask for up to 5 years. Now, some agencies will actually give you the form to document the past performance or the references, and that's great when they do. If they do not, then you create your own, and it's simple as just what we did before, and it can be whatever format that you choose. You can do just all text, or you can put it in a box or grid. Again, it's your choice. But again, just know, and this is why this part is so important, guys, because a lot of times when people get ready to do an RFP, then they start thinking about their reference, like, oh yeah, I can just ask so-and-so, and I can ask this person, and you can't. Because why? Because you can't find them. You don't have all their information, or they're not answering their phones. You want to, for references, you want to give them a heads up. You want to make them aware that they may be contacted by the city of Atlanta, by the University of Georgia, college, whatever it is. You want to give them a heads up in terms of someone may be contacting them on your behalf. You also want to make them aware of what is the name of your business, because that's how they're going to reference you. If you're a subcontractor, you want to give your name and say that, hey, I worked for this company. I was a subcontractor to them. And so they're going to just call and verify, so, full disclosure, let the person know, give them a heads up, and to make sure that they answer their phones. Because a lot of times when the agencies are calling back, they're calling, sometimes they will email. Typically, if they're emailing, typically they're sending a survey to the person for reference. So if they're asking for email, sometimes it's because they're going to send a survey out. You will have some instances of where the agency will ask you to send, they'll give the survey to you, and it'll be a part of the document, the RFP, and they in turn will ask you to email that survey to your reference, but then the instructions will state but make sure that that reference emails that form, that completed form, back to the contracting officer. Okay, so you can have a couple of different scenarios. Now, 80% of them just simply ask for references, ask for you to fill out the information, put it there, and give it back to them in this, in this format or something similar to that on their form. But you do have some outliers, and I've seen a combination of all of it. You do have some on that 10% on one side, 10% on the other, that may send a survey to you or have the survey as part of the RFP package. They in turn want that survey to be completed by your references, but the references then have the responsibility for getting. So what that tells you, you need to have good people, right? People who are responsive, people who you know that are going to not only speak well of you, but that they're going to deliver, that you're waiting. This is time sensitive. So, getting something like that, you have to be prepared for. So that's where it's really important for you to have your references. Now, what I would say that when you're talking about your references, as well as your performance history, we're only talking, because usually they only want 3 to 5 of performance history or references, right? So they only want 3 most times. Sometimes they'll say 5, but mostly 3. Your number 1 needs to be so spot on. When I tell you that number 1 needs to hit the jackpot, meaning it needs to match up almost exactly to what the agency is looking for. If the agency says that we are looking for a trainer, and the trainer needs to be certified in, say, cybersecurity, and they're wanting all of that, then your number 1 performance history and or reference needs to reflect that as closely as possible, if not match it directly, if you can. Now, you may not be able to. So if you can't match it exactly to what they're looking for, that's where that quantifier comes in that we talked about, as well as maybe the address and size and all of that, because maybe you can't match it. Maybe you're the trainer, but you don't have that particular certification, but you have other certifications. And certainly you have, from a quantity standpoint, you've dealt with large audiences. You've trained, rooms of, auditorium size rooms, or 3,000 people you've trained over a course of a year, whatever. So then that's where you can put that is your number 1, only if you can't match it. But your number 1, you want to try to make that the most relevant and come as close as possible to exactly what the agency is looking for. Then number 2 would be a little bit less than that. And number 3 is, three is down there. Now, if you can have all 3 that match, it's a no-brainer. It's good. It's perfect. It's no problem. But a lot of times people do not have, sometimes they don't have all of the things. So you just want to make sure number 3 is at the lowest one, but number 1, you want number 1 to be spot on. Okay. Email addresses, you want to make sure that the person's email address that you're placing there, try to go with a business email address, not Yahoo and Hotmail. That just doesn't seem business professional. So if you can go with the business email address, it's best. Now, I know people move around and leave. And so if you have references that you want to use, and there's nothing wrong. The other thing, let me say that there's nothing wrong with using a colleague as a reference also. Someone, at the end of the day, you're trying to get people who can verify that you've done the work. That's really what this is about. That these people can say, oh yeah, they were great on that project, or, I worked with them. They were absolutely wonderful, all of that. So you want to make sure that you get that information. Oftentimes they will ask for the contact information. You'll ask for that person's title. And so you will put that, make sure that's part of it. Making sure you fill this out completely, all the details is really important. I have seen so many times when I ask people for this, that they leave off information, and I still have to go back and say, okay, now what's their title? Okay, what's that address? What's this, what's that, and it's all spelled out. So just follow the instructions, okay? So that's pretty much it. You know, again, most cases there is a form for this, but if there's not, then there's one you can create this pretty simply yourself, either grid or you can just do basic information and it's fine. Okay. And because I did not. So here we are. For now, we're talking about key personnel. And in most cases here, for key personnel, you may have RFPs that will ask you to insert the resumes of the people who are the key personnel. Again, when they're talking about key personnel, the key to this is just the word, what it states, key personnel. So you don't have to list, 10 people and all of that. It's not everybody who's going to work on it. It's only the key people who are going to be a part of this particular project. And so you only need maybe 3, maybe 5. I wouldn't necessarily go beyond 5, maybe 7, but hardly ever. I've done that. Usually I'm going with 5 is more than enough. 3 is sufficient, but 5 is a good number here. Okay. You would insert the resumes of the people, put in their information here. Now, because some people on their resumes, and if you're, especially for my people who are totally new, and chances are you may be doing this project yourself and you may only have one other person, whatever, just make sure that you've updated your resume to reflect that your company is the #1 position on your resume. I can't tell you the number of times when I have gotten the resumes of the CEOs of companies, small businesses, and they haven't placed themselves on their own resume. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. This is what you're doing. You've been doing it for the last year, whatever. So you need to put yourself on there and describe, just like you would for anything else. Yes, Ms. Taylor, question?
Yes, ma'am. So I guess is a question. Now, if, for example, if I win a contract for someone to subcontract it out to someone, would I list my key personnel or their key personnel, since they're the ones that's doing the job?
Okay. So, okay, on this, we're talking about you're responding. I want to make sure I'm getting this correct for you. So you are responding to an RFP right now. Okay, this is one that you read about and you feel like this is a job that you can do because you're in what, logistics, is it?
Yes, ma'am. My NAICS code is freight forwarding.
Okay, so when you're responding to the RFP, whatever that RFP is stating, and if it should ask, again, keep in mind, every RFP is not going to ask for all of the information, all of that I'm presenting here. But if it asks for this, then you're inserting the people who are going to work this particular project for this RFP.
Okay.
If it's you, you're going to put your name, right?
Yes.
And then you're going to put your title. You may put freight broker or whatever's appropriate, and list your responsibilities. Because key personnel, if you're going to be a part of this project, maybe you're not, but because you're subbing it out and you're going to have other people working. If you're subbing it out, then you're going to list all of their names, their title, their responsibilities. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And the same for my trainers. Those who are training, they're going to list the name of the actual, who's going to be the trainer, who's the lead trainer, because they're going to be titles. Sometimes they also, in RPs, they will tell you the titles that they're expecting you to fulfill. They may say, who's the consultant? Who's the content writer? Who's the content developer? So sometimes they give you the title and then they're expecting you, to put that title in here and to show their responsibilities and experience. Also for the org chart, that some may ask for the org chart as well. So that's another area that you would put in and be prepared. Again, this is a template. So if you do these things ahead of time, then you're not going to freak out when you see it and you're like, oh my God, I got to do an org chart. I've never done one. I don't know where to go. You know, so if you do these things ahead of time, then now you will already have everything that you need. Okay. All right. So then that takes us, and we only have, I think, one more slide of this. So now that takes us to forms. The forms, this is the easy part, right? Because this is already what the agency, you know, gives you the form. You only need to fill it out. In most cases, you're only providing a signature, or you may be providing just some basic information. They may want a copy of your business license. If you don't have a business license, you get a business license, you know, so those are the types of things. Insurance. So these are things that they may ask for copies of. They may ask for Secretary of State Incorporation. You just go to Secretary of State form online and you just, you know, download it because it's PDF, download it. And now you insert that as your documentation. At the local, state level, county level, they may ask for E-Verify, your immigration form. Usually they will give you, because that's an affidavit, and it has to, in most cases, not all, at the local level, they'll give it to you as an affidavit. It has to be notarized. So you would take care of getting that notarized. Yes, question?
I think I didn't put my hand down. I don't have a question.
Okay, no problem. Is there
Yes, I do have a question. Do you submit your capability statement with this as well?
No, you do not now.
Okay.
Capability statements are, great question. Capabilities, well, let me back up. It could be, you would put that farther up, not as part of the forms. So sometimes I have been known to insert a capability statement. And usually what I would do is insert the capability statement after I've written the company history. So there is nothing wrong with that. As long as you see, if there's no language that says do not, then you can insert it. But sometimes you will have some who will say do not provide a capability statement. Okay, but this is a good place to put it after the company history, not in place of, because they expect to see written information, but you could certainly insert your capability statement after your company history before your technical approach. Great question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and so with forms, certifications, sometimes they ask for proof of your certifications. And so you would, if you're, you know, WBE or MBE or whatever it may be, then they may want to see that proof from your DD 214. They need a copy of that. You would put that in there for the veterans, okay? They may also ask for professional licenses. And so your professional licenses, you would put a copy of that in there. When it comes to insurance, in most cases, you do not have to have the insurance at the time of where you are submitting the RFP. The insurance is needed. Usually it's standard that most cases they're giving you about 10 days after you are notified that you have been awarded this contract. That is pretty standard. After you have been notified that you have been awarded the contract, you have up to 10 days. However, what I do suggest is that as part of the RFP, this material is that you pull out the insurance documents itself. Usually it's multiple pages, usually it's about 5, 6, 7, sometimes pages of insurance information. I say pull that information out and give to your insurance agent and make sure that the agent is aware of what the needs are. Now, if you have insurance already, it's great, but it's always good to make sure that you get a quote. Is all that you're asking your agent to do is to provide you a quote of what if you don't have this additional insurance that's being required, right? Because you're going in this like a winner. You're thinking, I'm going to win. Nobody does an RFP take all this time and think I'm just going to do this just for exercise. No, you want to win. So do all the things that a winner does, and that's being proactive, right? But again, the insurance is not needed to submit. Now, you will have some rare instances where they may ask for proof of your insurance, meaning proof of your current insurance. They understand because they're going to ask for that certificate of insurance where they want, the agency wants its name on it. you're not going to have that. There's, not until after you've been awarded. So they just want to see proof that you have current insurance for your business, and that's fine. Okay. There also will be a non-collusion form, which that sometimes is an affidavit as well, but most cases it's just a signature. And then at the federal level, they want to see the certs and rep. It's 52.515, which talks about telecommunications. And I would say to pull that out, that certs and rep 52.515, you can Google it, it'll come up for you, and have that already filled out. It makes it so much easier. And just know that if that is required at the federal level, we're talking about federal contracts here for that, then that is something that you would be added to your template. Okay. I think I saw that there was a question.
Okay, so when it comes to the insurance, you can go ahead and do submit the bid without the insurance, correct?
In most cases, that is correct. Yes, they give you all of the details of the amount of insurance that will be expected should you be awarded this contract. So to be proactive is what I tell people, is to go ahead and pull those pages out, and usually it's multiple pages, pull those pages out and give to your insurance agent, and make insurance agent aware that you are applying to a contract and that you would like a quote. You're not trying to, start the insurance at that point. You're just asking for a quote so that you have an idea of what this is going to cost you, right? And you don't have to have the insurance to actually submit on the bid, not immediately. In most cases, there are some instances, especially if you're in construction, more technical things, they will ask for proof of insurance. Even in your industry, they may ask for the proof, and that's fine. You have insurance already. You will show proof of your current insurance, and they will ask for that document. But in terms of naming this specifically for this agency, this government agency, then they're going to want to see what's known as the certificate of insurance, COI, and that certificate will have the name usually of the agency that you're going to do business with.
Now, Miss Tammy, I submitted a bid for the school board in Dallas. Now, all this that you're doing, they had this all electronically on
Yes.
the website. So it made it like so much easier, because you couldn't submit your bid without answering all the questions.
Correct.
So
correct.
it was so if I win one of the line bids on there, they wasn't asking for the insurance, but they showed the amount. And when you go to these insurance companies and ask for quotes, they really act like they don't know what you're talking about.
I can help you with that. I can help you with that. Yeah, it's normal. I mean, if you have a age, what you heard me state, the key word that I state, the operative word was agent, meaning you have a relationship with the agent already. So you're not just arbitrarily dealing with any insurance company and asking for quotes. You're dealing with a specific agent, and it's the same agent all the time. It's just like your home insurance, your auto insurance, or whatever. You have a specific agent that is the holder of those documents for you. So when you are working in business, you want to have an agent that you're working directly with, and they're going to be so familiar with this. It's a no-brainer for them. It's no big deal for them. But that's something I can work with you on. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. And just, that you all know, as Bridget was stating that I'm sorry, that's not Bridget. That was Tangia. I'm sorry, Tangia, that, yes, you're going to get, again, this is broad, this is general, this is giving you all of it to say, be proactive and be prepared. But every RFP will not call for all of this. But when it does, you will have it already. It will not be a surprise to you, because you will remember, oh yeah, we said in that class, this is what she was talking about. I should have done it. I didn't do it. Oh my goodness, here I am. Okay. All right, and then the last sheet is about the cost and price sheet. Again, this is typically provided to you by the agency. Rarely, although I've had an instance not too long ago where they kept talking about price and all of this, but there was no form at all, and I had to create it. And that was okay. I did. It was no big deal. But most instances, you will have a form that is the price sheet. The RFP would typically state if they want that price sheet submitted separately. Sometimes they, although it's electronic, they will state, we want this as its own PDF. And then you give us the technical, all the technical part of the PDF, of the response. So sometimes they will tell you, other times, it's just a part of it and it's okay. The price sheet, I put it here at the end, but in most cases, to be honest with you, it's probably going to be more at the beginning. It just depends on the RFP. The RFP, what I've provided here, this template for you guys is just, it's a guide. It's just a frame, and you go and fill it in so that you can be proactive and more comfortable and more efficient at what you're doing. Practice with it, put it in, fill in some of these parts, all of that. But at the end of the day, a lot of the RPs may not ask for all of this, but you're going to feel so much better to know if you've gone ahead and done your homework, and so that you have gone ahead and done the steps ahead of time. And that way you're not going to be stressed. Because most of the time, except for the people who are, well, not me, even our people who are seasoned and the ones who have been winning contracts, you all may have, sometimes you get an RFP, it's a good one, and you get it last minute. Somebody sends it to you an email, or, it sounds like too good to pass up. And then you start panicking, or you got to stay up all night to do it because, you got it at the last minute. So, but having this can certainly help you. Okay. So that's all that I have for you. Ran a little bit over time. And if you are wanting to get in contact with me, this is my contact information, although I think Mark may have provided it to you already. And so that if you have any questions, feel free you can email me. And then, of course, I'll give you my phone number as well. I'm sorry, I was supposed to have that already. But you all can certainly feel free to call me and with any questions, okay? Any final questions or comments before we go?
I really want to say thank you, and I'm glad that I finally got in this class. I was supposed to have been in it way back in December, and I called today. This has really just took a weight off my shoulders. And I don't like to bash anybody, but I was working with a company, and I learned a lot from that company. I learned what I don't want to do, and it's my first year in business legitimately, and being able to learn how to do things the right way.
Yes.
It's complicated, don't get me wrong. I love complication and I like to learn. And this has really, really just, I like being a part of this, and I have learned a lot in this hour, and I don't know what else to say. But it's just that this information, people think that, that it's easy to win these bids and contracts, when it takes a lot of dedication, work, and you don't learn this stuff in a college seat. I really don't.
That's correct.
I've been to school for international business and supply chain management. And they never taught us nothing.
No, correct. That is correct. That is right. Yes. Well, first, congratulations to you on your business, and to all of you, because it is no small feat to start a business and to stay in it. So it can be very challenging, but I tell everyone, there are contracts out here with so much for everyone. And so when you go back to that performance history, the first thing that we talked about, the performance history sheet, to determine where you should start, especially for my new people. For those of you who've been out there for a while, you probably already know, and you know, you're like, yeah, we do this all the time. And so that's great. But even with that, it helps to go back and take a look at what you have been doing to see where you can go and what else can you do. Because sometimes people get very stagnant and just do the same thing over and over again and never try to go into another area. And this pandemic, if nothing else, has shown us that we can do so much way more than what we think we're capable of doing, right? And so you just have to know how to navigate it. But the key to this is really about, if you just meet this RFP, respond to exactly what is stated, then and how it's what they're asking for, then you can't go wrong. If it does not state certain things, then go for it. If it doesn't say you can't do it, then do it. But the rule is definitely about matching to what the RFP expects you to do and what they're looking for. It needs to be apples to apples. Do not talk about something else that is totally unrelated to what they're seeking for in terms of the business to provide the services or products. Okay, great. I think I saw one other hand. Was it Bridget?
Yes, hi. I have to say that working for the federal government for 22 years and as a comptroller in budget, I've funded many contracts. And this right here was like eye-opening, seeing it on different side, on the different side, trying to win the contracts. And I wanted to say I have a RFP that's due February 9th, so I will be ringing you. I will be all on your phone. My first one. So I appreciate this. I definitely appreciate this.
Okay, then that is no problem at all. Thank you all so much.
One last thing.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I had a question. I put it in the chat, but what I'm wondering is, you were talking about that first performance history, or that first point of contact referral, that needs to be your ace in the hole. And so the question was, how do you reconcile that with, what if my ace in the hole as far as performance is beyond 3 years? Do you know what I mean? Like, so if what I've exactly done for you, I did that, but it was like 7 years ago.
Yeah,
it's
not gonna fly. Yeah, it's not gonna fly.
Okay.
So what's gonna work? This is what's so great, guys, about having this RFP, this template, and knowing where to place certain information. So in situations where you have experience that's beyond the 3-year mark or the 5-year mark, then you still have other areas to place it in within your RFP response, right? What are some of the other areas? You have your company history, the background, right? You have your cover letter. You can put information in there. So you have other areas where you can say it, but you can't put it where they're asking you and already stated that they only want it to be within the last 3 years. So it's not completely off the table. It's just that it can't be in that space.
Okay,
Now,
thank you.
What about volunteer? We volunteered during Hurricane Michael and
Volunteer efforts, yes.
Okay.
Experience is experience regardless. Volunteer paid for. I mean, think about a lot of businesses start out where you give away your business. You're trying to get business. So sometimes you got to give something away to get it, right? So a lot of times you aren't paid for it, but nevertheless you did the work. So yes, that counts as well.
Thank you again so much.
No problem.
Tammy, you the bomb, lady.
Well, I don't know.
I was just going to say she is, isn't she? So I'll agree with it. You don't have to agree yourself, Tammy, about that.
Good. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. If you have any questions, it's easier to send me an email because, of course, phone is always going. And as you can see, I have up here, I said Doraville Chamber of Commerce, and you're probably thinking like, what? Who is she? And that's another hat that I wear because I'm actually the CEO and president for the Doraville Chamber of Commerce. So a lot going on over here, as you have as well. But I just know that you guys are going to do extremely well. You've already proven that. Go for it. Feel confident in what you're doing. You have the experience. You know what you're doing. You're the best at what you do. I feel I'm the best at what I do. And now it's just a matter of how do we show that on paper to show it just like when you're applying for a job. You know, you just think of it as this is a job I'm going to get. And so now I need to have the resume to reflect that. Okay.
And I'm gonna stop the recording. And just as a reminder, we're gonna